Hey guys, it's Amy here with King's Crossing, and today we're going to be working on the front facade of what's going to become my London neighborhood. You can see, just like Privet Drive, I went ahead and laid out the spaces that I needed for the houses I was going to place here. Dom's house is already in place. Dom is not going to be staying on my island. He's going to be replaced with Diana because her house works better for what I think the London neighborhood should look like. Gonna stop, say hello to Raymond. I was crazy lucky to get him as my campsite villager. His house is perfect for London, but he wasn't on my original list because he doesn't have an amiibo, and I didn't think there was any way that I was going to get him. Both this area and the Privet Drive area were heavily inspired by Tania from Heath Horizons and Catland, who had this amazing Victorian era island. It was that island in particular that I really used a lot of inspiration for the London facade and into the London neighborhood. Really struggle here. I want the fencing to go out a little further than it's going to, and because of the way the beach is shaped, it's just not going to fit the way that I wanted it to fit. Often when you start a build and you can have an idea of what you want something to look like, and just be willing to go ahead and make changes as you go, because it often doesn't work out exactly the way you have it planned. The windows for this London area are from the Catland Victorian island. And of course, as always, all of these codes will be listed below. feel like I spent days terraforming and adding this back area. It really ends up going even much, much further back, because not only is there more London behind this front facade, but then my King's Cross station is going to be behind that. I really wanted it to be symmetrical, and realizing that the answer was that I just needed to pull the simple panels down one. And of course, moving them down it was just going to be quicker to pick them all up and replace them. So you can see I actually had to go ahead and just continue building the cliff back so I could get these simple panels placed properly in the upper level. My original idea here was to use the antique wardrobe as sort of my roof line, because I really like the lines they create. The color of the wood was exactly what I wanted it to be, and they didn't, for me, I didn't lose the sort of the illusion of the building when you're walking up next to them, using the trick of the record box on top of the antique wardrobe. In the end, though, it just didn't quite work the way that I wanted it to. It still felt a little empty. I do still end up using the antique wardrobes. I just end up using them in a different way, and you'll see that a little bit later on. And as I saw in Tania from Heath Horizons, I think it was her Narnia build, she was working on her attic spaces and said something about how she should have placed her path down before she started placing sort of the items down. Even though I saw that, I made the same mistake. Should have placed my brick down before I started placing all my panels down. Now I'm trying to get my staircase right in the middle of where I have my simple panels. And what I'm figuring out is that I can't do it, which means everything is going to have to move and shift over a little bit. And where I placed Dom's house, which again is going to become Diana's, it needs to move over just one space. So what I end up doing is swapping it to the right and then putting Raymond's house in the left spot. Okay, you can see now that I have both of the houses in place. Planted some trees to sort of hide the lines of where the simple panels are, and now starting to decorate the areas. I want there to be a real symmetry to the entrance into the London neighborhood, so trying to keep, at least by the staircase, everything fairly even, and then decorate each of their side yards a little uniquely. As I mentioned in the last video, the amount of hedges that I'm using, at least in this area of the island, is crazy. So many weeds that I need to pick to be able to build them all. Struggled in this area trying to figure out exactly how I wanted the hedges to either wrap around the house or to end. Again, because of the sort of the shape of the beach, I'm very limited in where I can take the fencing. In the end, what I did to solve the problem is I planted shrubs instead of using the hedging there, because what I do want to do is I want to prevent people from being able to walk off into this area of the beach when they come visit the island. As I mentioned before, I wanted to use the antique wardrobes as the roof line, and it wasn't what ended up looking best. So I went ahead and built the cliff up behind the simple panels, placed a wood custom code on top of that, and then put the brick ovens on top to create the illusion of chimneys on top of the buildings. I did still end up using the wardrobes on either side because it really creates this nice bookend, so that illusion and that facade is not broken. When you walk up the stairs into the neighborhood, you see the backside of those wardrobes, which is just wood, and it really does create the illusion of it being part of the building. The advantage to using the wardrobes is you can place something on top of them, so I was still able to use the record box trick of creating that third story of window. By placing the wood code on top of the cliff, it helps make the roofs look more real, especially when you're up on that level. And there you go. I think it worked out really well. I think it looks great. So now we'll do the walkthrough of the London neighborhood. I didn't show the building of the back part because it was very similar to what I had done in Privet Drive and very similar to what I did in the yards on the front facade part. It looks, I really love the way that it looks at night with the lampposts on and the phone box in the distance, the chimneys going. So you walk up and we have Nan and Poppy's house, and then a little food cart and table to eat here on the street side. Each of the yards has a little bit of decoration. And as you walk back a little further, Judy's house is behind Nan and Poppy's. We're not going to go too much further back because that's where King's Cross is. Then as we walk to the left, I have a couple little parks. It's one of the wonderful things about London is that it is filled with all these different parks, and I wanted that to be a part of the London neighborhood. One of the things that I did was completely enclosed resident services so that when people come to the island via dream address, they are forced up and out one specific way into London. Then as we walk over to the left, this is sort of the end of Muggle London, and we have our record store here on the right and a bookshop here on the left, and in between that is where you sort of sneak through to get to Diagon Alley. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.